Hey guys. All right, so in today's video, we're going to look at this example. I'm going to let you know what your requirements are for the draft due this weekend. We're also going to look at the problem-solving model and decision matrix concepts found within the method section um, and also the triangulation of data, which are due this weekend in your draft. Okay, so I have a student example here. I'm not going to be sharing the actual file with you guys just because um, I haven't actually gone um, gotten approval to send it out to students just to show it to students. Okay. And so I'm just going to be showing it and not actually sending it out to y'all. Um, So I'm not going to explain some of these things just because we're going to focus on the methods and the results sections of the report. This one, just so you know, is written in APA style. One that's written in IEEE will look quite different. Um, for an example of that, you can find the IEEE documents at the top of our Moodle, but it'll be in kind of like the two columns, right? Single spaced with spaces between paragraphs. I believe paragraphs are not indented either. And you can find all of, so the formatting is actually very different for APA versus IEEE, okay? So method section, can look different. Here, he starts off with this subheading, then has the secondary subheading. Um, I think that this is correct for the newest edition of APA, but you would have to check on the OWL of Purdue. That link is available on our Moodle as well. I use the OWL of Purdue to see the newest rules for APA style. Okay. Um, but anyway, basically what I'm saying is it doesn't matter how you organize these. He could have started with survey and then done participants or other words, right? The important thing is that we're including the main information and that we're finding ways of including it uh, in ways that's understandable. Right here, he decided to break it up just to make it clear that this part is participants, and once we get to this part, we're definitely talking about the survey. He doesn't mention every single survey question and just says see Appendix A. Okay. By the way, this isn't a perfect example. And so just be advised with that. It did get a good grade though. Um, the thing that I wanted to show you mainly is the data analysis section because this is what's going to be required this weekend. So if it hasn't already been clear to you, there are certain methodologies that we are required to use for this assignment. Three of them are the problem-solving model. Within that is the decision matrix, and connected to those is the triangulation of data. Okay. Um, for this, you're required to cite two different chapters of our textbook. Chapter 18 of Technical Communication by Mike Markel and chapter 16 of Technical Communication by Mike Markel, okay? And so you'll actually, in the references of your research report, you'll cite those two chapters separately, okay? And so you'll need to look up on the citation guide that you have, either for IEEE or APA style. With APA, it's on the OWL of Purdue. For IEEE, I included that manual on our Moodle. You'll have to find how to cite a textbook by chapter, right? Okay. And so what do I need? So I need a few different things. I need you to explain briefly what the problem-solving method is, just in a few sentences. It doesn't have to be super complex. It can be a paraphrase, or you're welcome to use direct quotes. Remember that you cannot plagiarize. If you have any issues or questions about plagiarism, you can always let me know. I should probably make a separate video on that at some point, although we should have learned that in 150. So you can mention briefly what problem-solving model is and just the fact that you'll be using it in your research here, okay? You're going to mention briefly what triangulation of data is, and that you'll be using it in this research. Then you'll be mentioning briefly what a decision matrix is, and that you'll be using it in your research. And then this is the important part, is then you're going to explain your decision matrix and how you created it. And as you're doing that, you're going to cite all of that using citing your secondary research. Some of this might be based on your primary research, which you don't need a cite, but a lot of it should be based on your secondary research. Okay, so let me go through this in a little bit more detail. Let me jump over to our textbook here. So this is the problem-solving model. It's on page 471 of chapter 18, technical communication. And so when you cite, you'll just cite from this chapter, and you'll look through these couple of pages here to here, okay? 474. This is the problem-solving model. This is the model. This is the methodology that we're using, that we're required to use, okay? This is why starting with the solution doesn't work for our research. If you have picked a topic, I met with a lot of you, and so I think most of you understand this, but if you've picked a topic that's a solution, not a problem, then you're going to have a problem with your research. For example, I know I bring this example up all the time. I promise I'm not against reading week, but it's just the example that comes up a lot. And students tend to want to do it a lot or recommend it a lot. And so if your concept is we need reading week, but you don't have a problem, and I guess your only problem is there is no reading week, that's not actually a problem, okay? So your problem can't be the lack of your solution. Does that make sense? Like, it can't just be we need this because it doesn't exist right now. And so that's why we're focused so much on identifying first a problem, okay? Here it says opportunity. We're just focusing on problem. What is a main issue that exists? And then we establish criteria. And if you don't remember what that is, we'll look at that in a second, okay? Then we determine options. And so these are the potential solutions, which I'm asking for 3 to 6 of them. Some instances you might need more or less than 3 to 6, but for most of you, 3 to 6. And then you're going to do a lot of the research, and you'll finally draw some conclusions. Okay. So the example that they use here is a printer. Okay. So in this instance, the problem is that that their current printer broke, and that they need one for their office, right? Pretty clear, pretty basic problem, okay? And so their criteria are these right here, that they want it to be somewhat fast, pages per minute, how fast can it print, that it can do duplex printing and color printing, okay? So these are their criteria that they want. And based off of those criteria, they've found these 3 options. These are 3 different printers. Now they're just written as brands, but I'm guessing there's very specific printers within that brand. And so then they have a weight for each one. So this is something that you can do, but you don't have to do the weight. I'll show you some examples of instances where you don't have to do the weight. But here you can see that color printing is way more important. In fact, 4 times more important than pages per minute, right? And duplex printing is 3 times more important, right? But it's not as important as color printing. So for example here, let's see, rating score. So this one right here got a high score on pages per minute, 6. I mean, it's not as high as this one, right? But it only counts as 6. Right here, it got a 1, which is pretty low. but it actually counts for 4. But because this one got a 10, it counts for a lot, right? And so something that could get a high score, um, something could get a high score easily by having higher ratings where it's weighted more, okay? I don't need to explain that in more detail. You guys obviously know math, right? Um, okay, make sure to give your decision matrix a title as well. Don't just call it decision matrix. Give it a specific title. Um, and if you need to have some kind of explanation, you can. Um, let's look at an example of some other decision matrices here quickly. So here is one to buy a house. Now, decision matrix. So decision matrix colon house purchase. It's a good title. Okay, so we know that it's a decision matrix, and within that, what is it for? For purchasing a house. Coffee. All right. Um, so here they have taken out the weighting scale thing. I believe, right? Yeah. So what they've done here is they just have a max for each one. Each one has its own max, and we have 3 different houses. It's the Elm Street house, the Kennedy house, the Maple Street house, and then we have our different features. And you have to really think, not features, sorry, criteria. You have to really think what are the proper criteria here, because I'll analyze this at least in your final, and you could lose points if you don't have the right criteria. For example, cost. When you're looking at buying a house, you can't ignore cost, because if we ignored cost, then we could just find a mansion, the biggest, hugest mansion in the world, and be like, that's the one, right? But in reality, because we live in reality, most of us, I try to sometimes, um, we can't just get the mansion, right? And so we have to take cost into consideration. And so this one just gives more points to cost because cost maybe is really important for them. Looks like location is quite important for them as well. And so these ones have the opportunity to score more points, whereas size is less important. Architecture, interior are less important. Features is a little bit more important, okay? And they made sure that it equaled 100 just to make it easy on percentages, okay? And so they could score it as a percentage, and then they rank each one. Best choice, second best, third best, right? Um, here's one where it has a weight, and it just doubles over here. Looks like it's out of 10. Is it out of 10? Or is it out of 7? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so yeah, so it looks like each one is 10. See, this one's a little bit confusing, I would say, actually, because we don't know that it's out of 10. I mean, I did the math and it looks like it's out of 10. Um, this one gives you a max as well. Why 990? I'm not sure. But all right. So hopefully that's helpful there. Okay. You can do it in different ways. There's not just one way to create a decision matrix, but I do expect it to be understandable. Um, you want to make sure that it's written so that it makes sense. Okay. So in the methods section, you're going to include a section somewhat called data analysis. If you want to call it that, call it that. If you want to call it something else, you can. It just has to make sense. But data analysis works. And in this section, like I said, you're going to briefly explain problem-solving model, briefly explain triangulation of data, which I didn't tell you yet, but triangulation of data is essentially the idea that the more types of research you do, the stronger your solutions become. So if you have just primary research and nothing else, then your solutions that you come up with could be strong depending on what your primary research is, but it will be a lot stronger with secondary research. And then it will be even stronger if you have, you know, multiple types of primary research or a lot of secondary research, right? And so um, we are combining primary research with our secondary research to create triangulation of data, to triangulate our data, and that's described very briefly in chapter 6. Okay, um, you can search for it in that chapter. Um, but then most of the work that I want you to do with this is with your decision matrix explanation. Okay. Um, so in this section, in the methods, what you'll have to do is tell us what criteria you're picking. Okay, so here he said that he's doing cost, eco-friendliness, and efficiency for his criteria, and he's telling us what weights they are. Okay, um, and here, actually, I would have liked to see some citation of some kind. There are no secondary citations here. I would like to know that there's a reason why one is weighted more. Um, Now with his, it was a little bit clear that eco-friendliness is really important. And so it kind of made logical sense that it was a 5. And so with some things, you don't have to cite, you don't have to have a secondary source citation for everything. But a lot of it, I like to see that it's cited. Okay. Um, and so these are the possible solutions: pre-wetted salt, chemical and thermal methods. And then he goes on to explain them here, and he makes sure to cite. Okay, it's just the one citation, um, and so it would, again, it could be stronger with multiple citations. All right, there's another citation there, um, but basically, I want to see that these ideas that you come up with, as well as the criteria and even the weighting, has some basis in the secondary research, that it's not just your idea. That's the whole purpose of this methodology, and the reason why we have the methods section, because we're showing that we're plausible researchers, that we're ethical researchers, and the plausibility of our research. It's establishing our own credibility as researchers, right? Um, Obviously, don't forget to include a section on your ethical considerations, just stating that what did you do to stay ethical? If you're doing your research on a sensitive topic, um, like something about people's mental health, for example, you might have to explain a little bit more about how you were ethical as a researcher. Whereas if it's less connected to people and harming them, you might not have to explain as much. Okay. So um, those are all the type of things that you want to include in the methods section for our class. For the assignment this weekend, just the data analysis section is enough. Okay, so we don't need the ethical considerations yet, or the subjects, or survey, or any other sections. But problem solving method, triangulation, decision matrix, explanation of decision matrix, we do need. Okay. Now you might think, where is the actual decision matrix itself? Well, it's actually in the results section. So in the results, you're going to simply list the results here, okay? Here we can read through it. 48 participants took part in this survey. The results of the survey have shown that nearly half of the respondents live in this district. Almost 30% live in Almaty. Now, this information is important regarding snow removal, okay? So make sure that the information that you don't include all your results. Don't include every single, unless you only asked a few questions. And if everything that you asked is quite important, then you can include all of it, obviously. But you should only include that which is important, okay? And then you don't need to say, if you said it in the methods section, if you mentioned, who your participants were in the methods section, we don't need as much explanation there in the results section. You still, sometimes we are repetitive in each section because people don't always read each section. But you don't want to say the exact same things. Okay. Um, by the way, if you do have figures, you do need to reference them. Okay. It looks like here that there's a little bit of a problem here, in that there is no reference. There's no figure name. Like right here, you can see figure 3, figure 4, right? Here there isn't that, and so that this person would lose points on that. Okay. Oh, it's up here. Okay. So they would still lose points. but it's because it's not organized correctly, but at least we do have it there. Make sure you do that correctly for your citation style, because different citation styles require different ways of formatting your figures. I'll mention that briefly in another video, okay, on the graphics. But if you have a graphic, you have to mention it in the text. So it can't exist just by itself floating there without being mentioned. And so that's why they say the figure 1 illustrates. And you don't want to say as seen below or as seen above, because when it's printed and possibly published, you don't know where exactly it will be on the page. They might have moved it around a little bit, and so you'll just reference it. You'll just cite it. Okay. Um, let's see here. So with your results, so you're just going to have the important graphics that you need, and then you'll explain them. Okay. So right here, and you'll explain just kind of the main important information. Roughly 60% of respondents actually want more frequent snow removal in the city. Okay. While being quite unsure about whether there are enough private organizations that can support such kind of actions. Um, now, note here that we're not analyzing. Okay, we're not saying what this means. He doesn't say this means that we need to create more snow removal options in the city. He doesn't say that, right? He might say that in the discussion section, in the next section. In this section, it's strictly explaining, explanatory information, but you are choosing what you explain and what you don't explain, because we don't explain everything. Same with the decision matrix, and the decision matrix actually goes in the results section because it is part of our research, because our solution, our recommendation is the thing that we're after, and we discover that through the methodology of creating a decision matrix. And so you're going to include the decision matrix in the method section, and it is required in your draft this Sunday. I realize that some of these things won't be fully completed, and so that's okay if you only have 2 solutions that you've researched so far, or 2 criteria that you've researched so far, or if you have your 3 to 6 criteria but you haven't found good enough citations for all of them but only some of them, that will be okay. This one wasn't titled well. It just said decision matrix. We would want to say maybe decision matrix, and then a more specific name there. All right. Okay, and then it goes into the discussion section. Okay, so all right. I think that's understandable. Okay, so hopefully that helped. Just as an overview, the thing that's due this weekend is your only part of your method section. If you want to include the whole everything that you have for your methods, you can include it. If you've written more, that's fine. But I mainly want to see that you have a data analysis section with these 3 sections with the explanation of the decision matrix. Okay, with the results section, I want to see as much as your results as you have. It's okay if maybe only 6 people have done your survey so far. Just write what you have so far. Maybe you're planning on doing multiple types of primary research. Only one is required, but some of you are doing multiple kinds. And so maybe you would include just your survey right now, and later you'll include another survey or an interview or an observation. And I realize, because it's a draft, it is pass fail. So if you don't have the basics of what I require in the methods section, you'll lose half your points on the assignment. If you don't have the basics of what I require in the results section, you'll lose half your points. Obviously, if you don't have what's required for both, you won't get any points, because it's just pass fail. And so I am very understanding that it's a draft and it's not going to have everything. I need at least 1 graphic in the results section, okay, and also the decision matrix. So two graphics, and we need at least some citations in the methods section, okay? In the data analysis section, some citations here. Not just Mike Markel, but some citations from the readings that you've done. All right, yeah, I think that's understandable. Anything else? Let's see here. I think that's everything. Yeah, so I will be making another video on graphics, ethical graphics, use of graphics, and I'll reference our chapter on graphics. You're going to be making graphics over the next few weeks. As I mentioned, you do need to include a couple of graphics. Sorry. You do need to include a couple of graphics in your results section for your draft this Sunday, specifically to your decision matrix and at least one other graphic of some kind. And by graphic, I mean a figure or a table, right? Of some kind. Alrighty, guys, good luck, and look forward to our other videos coming out for this assignment this week.